Welcome to the Ignorance is Strength podcast. I'm your host, Fabian motherfucking Ojeda, and I don't know shit, but that's okay. All right, let's get this shit started. Thank you everybody for listening to the Ignorance is Strength podcast. Hope you all enjoyed episode number 74 with Stephen Michael Myers. I messed that one up. Michael Stephen Myers. Yeah, such a common name there. Definitely glad to have him on the podcast, and I didn't even realize it was during September 11th weekend, so definitely appropriate there. Thankful for him sharing his veteran stories. We're back today with a brand new guest, and she's an actress hoping to make it, and I'm wondering if they even call it Hollywood anymore, but we'll find out about that right now. I want to welcome to the podcast Miss Ashlie Lawson. How you doing?
I'm good. I'm happy to be here with you guys.
Yeah, for sure. Where are you joining us from today? I think you're from Tennessee, right?
Well, I'm originally from just outside of Memphis, Tennessee, but I'm currently located just outside of Dallas.
Okay, so all right. So still southern, I guess.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, because we're in North Texas, so we're not too far from Louisiana and Arkansas both.
Oh, okay. Yeah, North Texas. The only thing I know about North Texas is it's close to Oklahoma, and I drove through there once and beat the. Are you anywhere near Amarillo?
No, that's on the opposite side.
I beat the Big Texan State Challenge in Amarillo, Texas.
Okay.
But you're in their entertainment world, and I was just kind of like playing around with some wordplay there. Hollywood. Do y'all even still call acting and entertainment Hollywood? I know it's like old phrasing, but it used to refer to it like, oh, I'm gonna go out to Hollywood and make it and that kind of stuff.
In my younger years, I was definitely one of those people that was like, yes, I'm going to graduate high school. I'm going to go out to California. But I think these days it's a lot, I don't want to say easier, but I think it's a lot better in the sense that people from all over the country have a better chance. Like it used to be, if you're not located in the right spot, then you don't have any chance and you're going to have to move. Nowadays, especially with COVID moving everything to self-tape auditions for the most part, you can have something that's casting and filming in LA and still get auditions for it here in Texas, like North Carolina, everywhere. I know I've got an agent in Utah that gets all kinds of big castings that don't even always film in Utah. So it's definitely much easier than it used to be.
Okay. Now, before we even just kind of jump into what you're up to, a lot of the time when I'm in an interview, I like to give the listeners kind of like what I call is I like to frame the picture, kind of give them a glimpse into who we're talking to, right? So if you don't mind, can you just tell us a little bit about, where you grew up and, maybe some of your hobbies and whatnot and how you kind of got that acting bug?
Yeah. Oh, so those are some of my favorite things to talk about. So as I mentioned earlier, I was born in Memphis, Tennessee. I was raised there for the most part. I've been in Texas for about 10 years, and all that time I've been here around the Dallas area. I started acting when I was in middle school. I fell in love with theater. I was one of those kids that was constantly asking my parents to take me to see stuff. In downtown Memphis, we have an Orpheum Theater. So we always had a lot of big musicals, especially come there. And I begged my dad to get tickets to take us to see Peter Pan. So that was my very first thing that I saw in live theater. And just like from that moment on, I was like, that is what I want to do. And really started theater acting like I think most of us do, because theater acting tends to be a little bit more accessible, especially when you're a kid, to start out that way. And it never really left. I went to school in Clarksville, Tennessee, and graduated from Austin Peay State University. Small little university. It was a big deal the year I graduated because they finally reached an enrollment of 10,000 students.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I graduated with a degree in English education, and I have taught high school English. So always kind of that whole world to me, literature and drama kind of go hand in hand. So I always stayed relatively in the family.
Yeah. Growing up, you mentioned that just kind of it became like your thing. That was, what you wanted to do. Did anyone ever kind of tell you like, oh, it's a pipe dream, like you should have a more tangible kind of plan? Obviously you had, the teaching experience and whatnot. But that's to make that money to pay those bills. It's something that you kind of have to do. You kind of fall back on. But did anybody ever try to convince you otherwise? Like, nah, that's like a pipe dream. Only a few people make it. Or were you more kind of encouraged?
So honestly, it was a little bit of both for me because my parents were super supportive. My mom did everything she could to try to help me. I had an agent in Nashville when I was younger, and that was back before we really had everything move online. So everything was done through phone and still kind of postal mail. And that was when I was in middle school. And she did what she could, not knowing a lot about it. She bought books and stuff like that to try to figure out how to market me. She and my dad paid for my acting classes. So I had a lot of support from my immediate family, but we grew up, my brother and I did, around my mom's side of the family, and they have always been very close knit. And it wasn't even just me, but it was kind of like anytime somebody wanted to leave where the rest of the family was located, there was not necessarily discouragement, but a lot of pushback. Like instead of saying, oh, that's so great, it was always, well, this could happen and that could happen. And what if this goes wrong? And so I kind of caught both ends of it. But fortunately, since my parents were supportive and still are, that was a lot easier as well, for sure.
Mm-hmm. Because you always hear about stories like, somebody like, the comedian Gabriel Iglesias Fluffy, who essentially had to be like homeless for a bit in order to make it, and that seems to be a trend with a lot of really successful people, is that they gave everything up in order to, make it and make a name for themselves. But, I wonder too, like, how many of them, because I'm sure there was like a bunch of actors too that were living normal lives and finally were able to strike it with something. And so are you currently doing only acting and entertainment and whatnot, or are you kind of living the double life as well at the moment?
I'm doing the double life thing. So I do very much still act. I'm constantly submitting myself. My agents are constantly sending me things. But like I said, I have an English education degree. So I do that online. And being that it's done through an online school, it gives me some flexibility to be able to, even do things like this during the week.
So you were even teaching online, but like pre-COVID?
No, I wasn't teaching online pre-COVID. So pre-COVID, I actually taught in a brick and mortar school. And then I had left actually a couple years before COVID happened. And then honestly, with COVID, I just got bored. And I was like, if I'm going to be at home, I would like to be doing something while I'm at home. So.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's a lot of people too. I think COVID has kind of sparked like this creative, like just explosion. I think so many people have come up with, new music or new projects or, all kinds of different things. I mean, I started this podcast because I was bored during COVID,
Yeah.
And I feel like a lot of people did something like that. Because when it really comes down to it and you kind of have to stay home, you have to do something, you have to find something that's, where you can interact with people or where you can share a talent. You can't just be expected to be like, indoors all day and under wraps, you know what I'm saying? So
right.
I feel like a lot of people, that affected a lot of people the same way. But what is the you mentioned doing, like virtual casting and stuff like that, and explain that a little bit, because I mean I don't even really know too much about like the traditional casting, to be honest with you. I think I never had any ambitions of being an actor or anything like that, but I'll tell you a quick story. I think I told her in a couple podcasts. I was on a reality show one time, without even really wanting to be. I was a security guard for nightclubs and stuff like that, and I just quit with one company, and I was looking for jobs on Craigslist and stuff like that, and I saw something for an MTV security something or other. I didn't even read it all the way through. I just thought, oh, that sounds cool. I'm going to show up, because a lot of them were just open, like, come bring your guard card and your resume, blah blah blah, and then we'll go from there. And then I go, and then it turns out it's not like a hiring fair or anything like that. It's actually an audition. I'm like, and they're like, you want to do it anyway? I'm like, yeah, let's give that a try. And it was pretty cool because I didn't have to really like act per se. It was more so they just gave me instruction like, all right, you're gonna bust into this room like you're gonna kidnap somebody. I'm like, I can do that. I just convince myself I'm gonna really kidnap somebody. And I basically just started yelling and cussing, and I actually broke their door by accident. So I guess it was really that good. But I got the part, and it was like one of Brody Jenner's bodyguards in his short-lived TV show Bromance. And I'm like, dang, that was a cool little experience. But I don't know much about casting, so maybe kind of talk about what it was like doing like traditional casting as opposed to like virtual.
Yeah. So with traditional casting, your agent submits you, or here in Dallas, we have a lot of self-submission as well for people that don't have agents. Mm-hmm. And so you would get the sides sent to you, which is just usually like a scene or half a scene that you're auditioning for. And sometimes they send them to you and they're not even necessarily from the project, just because they don't want stuff to get leaked, depending on how big a project is. And then if here in Dallas, everything was done through initial self-tape for the most part anyway. And then if they liked you and wanted to do a callback, those would be in person. And so then you would go in and you fill out their little sign-in sheet, and you go in, and they usually ask if you have any questions whenever you would go into a live audition. And, usually ask clarification questions. But what I've learned through all of my training and stuff is that if you can get out of your head of asking them questions about like what they're looking for, that you are better off, because you need to just be yourself. They want to see how you have chosen to approach it in the first place. So right. If you stop trying to be what they want you to be and just be yourself, you're better off that way. And so when that was still going on, I mean, I attended several of those, got several bookings off of it. And but now everything is self-taped. So when they do a callback, instead of being in person, they do a Zoom call. So you're still talking to them real time. You're still face to face. They'll have you usually run through the scene and then maybe give you some adjustment notes and then have you do it again. And on most of them that I've been on have lasted less than 5 minutes. Because really? They usually have so many that they have to get through.
Mm-hmm. Now, could that be more like, I would kind of be like almost discouraged, because like when I have like a short, job interview, I'm like, that was it, but I'm sure you've been through plenty of them, and you said most of them are about 5 minutes. That's kind of crazy.
Yeah, I mean, even in person, sometimes you would be waiting to go in there to audition longer than you were actually in the room with the director and producers. It really just kind of depends on the part you're auditioning for, how much direction they want to give, because sometimes for some of the roles, they're not 100% sure what they're looking for. So they like to bring in a variety of people. So if you're in one of those roles or auditioning for one of those roles where they're not 100% sure what they're looking for, they may spend a little bit more time with you to see what they can do to try to figure out if maybe they know the direction they want to go with it.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So try to just feel it out, I guess. And that's why it's important, like you said, to kind of just be yourself, right?
Yeah, very much.
Okay. Now, what exactly, do you have like under your belt? I looked at your IMDb, just explain that a little bit, like where you got started, what you've been working on, what you are working on. What do you have under your acting belt right now?
I got started in film specifically probably about 5 years ago. I just signed up for some classes that I could find online. Some of them were really good for not really knowing much about the film industry, especially in the Dallas area. And some of them were really good. So it was whether the class was good or not, to me, as long as you can learn something, it was worth it. And in those initial acting classes was where I kind of learned what kind of casting websites I needed to be a part of. I learned a lot about the union and SAG eligibility, all of that kind of stuff, which there is a whole lot to that as well. That's like a whole different ballpark of knowledge to have. And really just kind of got to meet people and learn the ins and outs from people that were still involved in the industry. And I was fortunate enough through some of those classes to meet other people that have led me to some more advanced classes. I worked with Glenn Morshower for probably about a year and a half. And we got lucky. We had to shut down that class when COVID came as well. So he was like, let's just move it to Zoom, because he cared enough about us as fellow actors to say, let's still practice. And that was really great as well, because now that all of the callbacks are done on Zoom and you've practiced camera angles and how to be in front of a computer screen and still doing your acting and doing your job and stuff, it was really helpful to do it that way. I now have a coach that's in the UK because I've always been really curious how British actors are trained. And it's kind of my dream to do something on British television. And I also have recently started working with Susan Lanier. She's in LA as well. And she's actually got quite a bunch of stuff upcoming as well. And then Heidi Mendez. So I've got a lot of good coaches. And as far as me, I just wrapped a supporting role for a kind of like action suspense thriller type movie. It's in post-production. It literally wrapped probably 3 or 4 weeks ago.
Okay.
And it's based on a true story. It was a lot of fun to film. The story is great. It's in post-production, like I said, and they're looking to get it into some film festivals for hopeful distribution. But the production company, Beyond Star Films, they have a couple of movies out on Amazon already, and actually have quite a lot of accolades themselves as well for past work that they've done. And I also I filmed a trailer for something here locally in DFW that I was talking with the director this morning, actually, to find out more, because I knew I wanted to say something about it. I can't say a whole lot because they are finishing putting the package together to start pitching that trailer to streaming networks as well as big television networks, in which case, if that does pick up and there's a lot of hope, they've gotten a lot of good feedback on the trailer itself, I will actually have one of the leads in. So that's exciting.
Nice. Now, this is, it's kind of, it's a tough question to answer, because everybody would love to be like that big name out there in the acting world, or whatever your craft is, if you're like a musician, everybody would love to be like that recognizable name in their industry. But what's more important, you kind of having like that fame, notoriety, being, known as, a top, one of the best actors out there, or just constantly working? Would you rather have like that one or two big hit, or would you just rather constantly be on something, for the next 10, 20 years?
Yeah, I would much rather constantly be working and not have to necessarily do my day job unless I just wanted to, if that makes sense, because it's so much more fulfilling and makes you feel like you have so much more purpose when you're actually doing what you love to do. And if you can get paid for it, that's even better. So I would definitely be fine as long as I could just be constantly working.
Well, I guess it wasn't that hard of a question after all. Because you think like, and maybe it's because to you it's not a pipe dream, it's something that's tangible that you're doing, that you're working toward, but to somebody maybe who hasn't started yet and they're just still kind of like daydreaming about it, maybe kind of the whole allure of having your name in lights and being this big famous person, maybe that's more the draw. But once you get into it, maybe you start to realize, okay, this is actually work, and so you appreciate the work a little more, and that's cool to see, because I think I've talked to a lot of actors or hopeful actors in the podcast, and they seem to value the work a lot more, and really kind of wanting to be constantly in there putting in the work, which is pretty cool. It shows that they really kind of care, they care for the craft of it and whatnot. When it comes to, your style, your acting style, like what is it that you think you do maybe really well, maybe better than most, and that's kind of that's your thing, your own niche,
Yeah, I think for me, it's being able to, because a lot of times for an audition, when they send you sides, you may only have a page. And when you're looking at it in the context of, if you book the job, there's going to be 89 other pages that go with that. It can sometimes be difficult to read it and then know 100% the approach that you want to take to it. And one thing that I've learned through working with some of my coaches is that you have that initial thought as to what the character is, but there's that caution of not to stereotype them. So like if somebody's clearly angry in a scene, to not just be full on angry, but rather read between the lines and see what kind of angry this person is. Like, is that character somebody that's going to be like low and subtle? Are they going to be somebody that wants to keep their anger kind of under the table and only the person they're talking to know it? Are they super dramatic and want everybody in the room to know that they're mad? And just kind of playing around with that to see which one fits. And it's been amazing to me how when you hear that, it doesn't really make sense. But when you're doing it, the second you're doing it the way it should be done, and I say should be done, like how it feels to you, you instantly know, because you're like, that's it. You can instantly feel the connection with the character when you're kind of playing around with it. And a good rule of thumb to have too, if you're doing an audition, like live audition or even a Zoom audition, is to have about 2 or 3 ways to play it anyway, and not get so stuck on just doing it one way that ends up being the only way you can do it when you are in front of directors and producers.
Nice. So you I guess you would say then, you kind of have a feel for who the character is. That's kind of that's your specialty there.
Yeah.
Nice. And has there ever been one character that you've played that you've just really kind of identified with, like, that's me, that's who I was born to play?
Yes. So funnily enough, the character that I play in the show I just mentioned, we filmed the trailer for, that's being pitched, I can definitely very much relate to that character, but I can't say too much about that. So the other one was actually a student film that I did, kind of not when I was first starting out, but kind of after I had some credits under my belt. It was a Western film, and she was a tough woman that her husband had been murdered, and the guy that murdered her brother, her husband, his brother showed up to her land. So she's like trying to defend her land from these guys coming and trying to take it, trying to find out where her husband is. And she was just a very stand your ground. If you're going to get in my face, I'm going to get right back in yours, and you're not going to intimidate me kind of person. And I really related to that, not necessarily because it's who I am, but just more so because I admire people that can do that kind of thing, just kind of be no nonsense. Like, I don't have time for politeness if you're wasting my time and if you're just going to be ugly about it. So I really enjoyed playing her.
Yeah. It sounds kind of cool. It reminded me of a few things. But with that, I wanted to ask, like, has there been like a recent film, or maybe one that's coming up, or even if you had to make a remake of something, right? where you feel like that would be your perfect role? Like you saw somebody else playing it and you're like, I can do it just as well, or I can do it better, you know?
Yes. So I have always wanted to, when I was younger and even to today, one of my all-time favorite movies is Little Women, but the 90s version with Winona Ryder, Kirsten Dunst, Claire Danes, Susan Sarandon. I actually haven't even seen the new one, but Jo March is one of my favorite fictional characters ever anyway, because she's so into her books and her reading and writing, and that is very much who I am as a person. So going back to your last question with relating to it, I always was like, oh man, if they did a remake, I would love to be her. Or even because I know they have a stage play for Little Women as well to do it there also. Like I just have always wanted to be her.
Mm-hmm. Are you still you kind of maybe bouncing between, you know, the stage and the camera, or are you sticking more to one or the other?
I am mostly just camera. I'm not opposed to doing theater, but just for me, I've figured out that film is definitely where my passion is.
Mm-hmm. And when it comes to film, your acting, are you doing any more? I know you have like a writer credit as well on IMDb. Are you doing a lot of writing these days, or anything, or you have any ambition to write or direct or anything like that?
I do actually, especially writing. Directing, I would like. I actually worked with a local director who I was being a PA for, and I kept noticing things as they were filming, and he was like, I think I want to have you direct one of my projects sometime. And I was like, sure. And then honestly, until he had said that to me, I had never even really thought about directing. But then when I paid attention to what he was noticing that made him say that, I was like, I get it. I've got the eye for it, to catch those little nuances on camera that you as actors don't always know are coming across. Mm-hmm. But writing has always been a passion of mine. I've dabbled in it. Like I was one of those people that would get bored in class, especially math and science, and I would just start writing because I'm like, well, I'm stuck in this classroom anyway. I may as well do something productive with it.
Yeah, for sure. Are you writing anything right now, or is just kind of more focusing on acting?
So I actually have a few things that I've started writing. One of them would be an episodic kind of thriller mystery type thing. It's nice. Based on several true crime stories, because I'm super into true crime as well. And I have a suspense thriller novel that I'm writing also. I'm actually about halfway done with that. So, and I've got some ideas that I've written down, but haven't actually started putting the ideas down on paper yet.
Mm-hmm. You know, one thing that I like to ask, people that act and write and whatnot, because your guys' minds just work a little differently, you know. So I'm wondering, like, if you ask a random friend, like, hey, what are you streaming right now? What are you watching? What movies, what TV shows are you watching? You know, they'll kind of give you the same answers, and a lot of the time I'm like, yeah, I checked that out, I didn't like it, but you have a better understanding of acting and film and everything. What are you streaming right now? You know, what are some good recommendations? And maybe not some so if they're typical, good, whatever, but even some more so not typical ones.
So I am in recent, I guess in like the last year, for me, Netflix has been putting out a lot of really good original Netflix series. And like I said, I'm really into British television. So British shows always tend to get me a lot more. And ever since it came out, I am a huge binge watcher. So usually by habit, I don't like to watch something until the entire series is done because I don't want to have to wait. I'm a very impatient person, but a few shows that have not been that way for me are The Last Kingdom, which is on Netflix. I was so excited when they announced that there was going to be a 5th season of it. And when the 4th season came out, it was right in April when they had first started shutting everything down for COVID. And there's only 8 or 10 episodes in each season. And I literally watched all of it in 2 days. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, what am I supposed to do now?
Uh-huh.
So The Last Kingdom is definitely always on there. I even go back and rewatch some of those when I get bored. And I'm really excited for the third season of You to come out in next month.
Yeah, a lot of people really want to see that.
Yeah.
You mentioned the British TV a lot. And then it just kind of dropped in my mind real quick. I'm like, I gotta ask, are you a fan of The Office, and which one is better, the British one or the US?
I am a huge fan of The Office, and I have to say that I like the American one better only because I saw that one first, and because some of the humor in the British version of The Office doesn't completely translate. So I definitely the American one. Plus, I'm a huge fan of all of those actors that are in the American one as well.
Yeah, the British one was so short,
Yeah.
and it just kind of like, I didn't get a lot of the humor either, but it was very short. I was like, they do like seasons and things like that a lot differently over there, I suppose. Because the Office US will have like 20 something episodes a season, and I don't even know if the British one had 20 episodes or not.
Yeah.
But as far as people that inspire you, right? Have if you had to throw like, I don't know, 3 to 5 different actors in like a blender, right? That made up your acting style and your likes and everything, who would those actors be?
Well, I would definitely have to say my big person who I've always loved is Marilyn Monroe. I I I I just love her, not even necessarily her acting, but funny story was when I was younger, I we had a big storm where I lived at outside of Memphis, and it knocked the power out, and our power at our house was out for literally like 3 days. And my mom had one book about Marilyn Monroe on her bookshelf, and it was a big book. So I was like, oh, I've got time to sit here and read this. Read it, instantly fell in love with her. And if you saw my bookshelves, there's like anything and everything written about Marilyn Monroe on there. When I was in high school, my bedroom had nothing but Marilyn Monroe in it. I have always appreciated who she was as a person and the things she had to overcome in order to get to where she did. And I also think that she was underestimated a lot as well. And I like stories about women who get underestimated and then they just come right at you with a bang. So she was the real life epitome of that. So definitely her. I have to say also, I have always loved Susan Sarandon as well. I think even because she's out of my age bracket, I have always really appreciated that no matter what she's done, her character has been relatable, even to somebody that's like 20 years younger than she is. Especially loved her in Bad Moms Christmas. I don't know, that may be odd to say, but her character in that movie cracked me up. And then my other one would probably be Eliza Butterworth, and she's in The Last Kingdom. She plays the queen in that, and she is actually a few years younger than I am, and it's amazing to me how you can see her on Instagram and she looks so young and beautiful and radiant, but then she gets in front of camera and she's just this whole transformation of this super traditional queen that wants things to be her way and nobody else's way. And to even see how they are able to age her on there also, and she can just go right with it.
Yeah. Now, we're not on the Ignorance Strength podcast. We're not above a little bit of smack talking here. It's nothing bad, right? We're just doing trivial stuff here. But are there any like actors or even just movies or TV shows where people mention how great they are all the time, and you're just like, I just don't get it. You know what I'm saying? Like, For example, like like there's a comedian, who is it, like Dane Cook. People always mention how great he is. I'm like, I don't get it. Like I'm not a fan. Like I cannot, sit and enjoy anything he does. And people are like, what? You're crazy. He's good. So, that's not too controversial. I think it's just trivial. But is there any actor, TV show, movie where you're just like, I can't get behind that?
I don't have anything specific. I will say more on a general term with what Disney has been doing. I take it extremely personally that they are taking all of their beautifully animated movies and turning them into real life. And not necessarily because of the actors or the storylines or anything else, because the storylines are still just as beautiful as they are in animated. But for me, when you put a real person's face with what you grew up being an animated character, it kind of took the magic out of it a little bit for me. But yeah, and I actually I refuse to watch them.
Oh wow. All right. Yeah, there you go.
Because I don't want the magic to be ruined for me.
Uh-huh. I get what you're saying there. Yeah, it should, like, it should be, the way it was originally presented, right? Because, like, especially for us, I grew up without, the live action versions of them. That's what you remember, you know. But yeah, I mean, some of those remakes are pretty good. You're not missing too much though. Yeah. Anything else like that, or that's the only kind of like a little pet peeve?
No, I mean that's the only kind of thing. It's not even that they're like the remake aspect, because I like a good remake as much as the next person, but I don't like my childhood magic being taken away.
Got you. All right, we'll keep the magic. So, what are some things that you're looking forward to in the future? Like, what's your ultimate goal with acting right now?
My ultimate goal right now is to, like I said, I would love to do something with British television.
Mhm.
I would also like to do a sitcom, and I would also really like to see the trailer that's being pitched that I worked on get picked up, because I do think that it's a story a lot of people would like and be able to get into.
Yeah, for sure. Now, a couple last things here. When it comes to the young actor out there, maybe the person that's thinking about becoming an actor, and maybe they're not too sure, and maybe they're kind of at a little crossroads, like, do I look into something else, or do I follow my ambition here, right? What's some words of wisdom from you, who's in it, what do you tell that young up and comer?
I would tell them one thing when I was in Glenn Morshower's class that he really liked to push to us was to stop thinking of the acting industry as being something competitive. And at first, that didn't really, like, it didn't make sense to me, because that is what it was. It was a competition. But I've since learned what he meant in a deeper sense, which is that, if we can all help each other, we are better in the acting community as a whole. But also, if you're willing to help somebody, you never know who's going to be willing to help you later when you really need it. And I've also would say to not be afraid to ask for help. It took me a long time to realize that 9 times out of 10, people do want to help you. They want to get the answers. They want to see you also be successful, because it's like, just grab everybody's hand and we're all going to the top.
Yeah, I like that. All right. So, is there anything you want to throw out there as far as like where people can find you, maybe some of your work, your social media, anything like that?
Sure. So I'm on Instagram. I'm at Ashlie Lawson Actress, and that's ASHLIE Actress, no underscores or anything. You can find me on Facebook. My Facebook page is just Ashlie Lawson, and then my website, ashlielawson.com. And on my website, you can see some super fun behind the scenes photos, all of my demo reels, other little clips. some other information about me as well. And as far as stuff that I'm in, like I said, it's all mostly still in post-production or currently getting pitched. So unfortunately, it's not viewable yet. Mm-hmm. As far as recent things.
We'll wait for it. We'll find it. Is there anything else you'd like to throw out there into the podcast world?
I would say, especially if you're looking at being an actor, like I said before, stop trying to be what you think they want you to be and just go at things being your authentic self. Because whether you believe it or not, people can always tell when you are not being true to who you are. And that is just going to hold you back longer.
Mm-hmm. Nice. All right. So you got a lot more podcasts coming up, or have you done a bunch recently?
I haven't. So you are my first one that I've done.
Oh, okay. Nice.
Yeah. So I've been really looking forward to it. But other than that, yes, my next few weeks are slammed and I'm really excited about those as well. So
for sure. Yeah. So we'll put you out. I'll tag you on Instagram and whatnot. And hopefully maybe tomorrow. I'm like, maybe it's released tomorrow. Yeah. But I really appreciate having you on. Wish you a lot of luck in everything you're doing. I'm definitely going to look out to see what, if anything pops up on Netflix or Hulu within the next, year or two. I'm going to be like, hey, I know her, Ashlie with the IE at the end.
Yeah.
But yeah, thank you so much for coming on and sharing a little bit about your story. And for everybody listening at home, appreciate it. Thank you. Fuck you and good night. Subscribe to the Ignorance is Strength podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Google Podcasts. Like, follow, and share on Facebook and Instagram at Ignorance is Strength Podcast and on Twitter at The Ignorance Pod.